Yeah, so we should mention in her book she wrote six characteristics of Ikigai that kind of help the reader understand what a source of Ikigai is.
Hmm.
And yeah, they go quite deep. So
Yeah.
what one stood out for you as interesting? Or what one do you like?
I think the point she makes, there are 2 points, sorry. So the number four and number five. So she says, as a point number five, that Ikigai is entirely individualistic and it cannot be borrowed or imitated. That's a very strong point. And the reason why I pair that with number five is there's, I think, strong correlation. So the fifth point she brings up is Ikigai holds the nature of establishing a value system in the heart of the person who possesses it.
Mm.
And that, when I read that part, I got a shock, positive shock. And the reason is, before reading her book, I told you earlier, I started kind of organizing my Ikigai and how I would go about like visualizing and framing my Ikigai. And what I was doing essentially was I was trying to establish a value system
Wow.
of my own. And that was a huge aha moment for me. And if you think about it, why do you have to establish your own system? Because it is entirely individualistic.
Mm.
How we view our values, how we view our what what's more valuable or not. It depends. Most of us have different upbringing, different encounters, the events that shapes your value. And then another factor is the value start to shift or change over time.
Time. Yes.
So this individualistic, ikigai also evolves over time.
Mm.
If you try to stuff that together into a somewhat very rigid framework,
Mm.
and I think Venn diagram somewhat tends to be that way because the idea of the Venn diagram is to force people to think in terms of, okay, number of elements, and the famous one happens to have four elements. And I think you kind of hinted it earlier, Nick. We can debate that Venn diagram, you know, on and on and on, like what should we put in the middle? But then the fact that it's a Venn diagram, that's not going to change.
Yeah.
And my point is, I don't think, if the Venn diagram works for people, great, right? I don't have anything against that. But I think these value systems need to be framed up in a little bit more loose, malleable, changeable framework. And that's the realization I
Mm.
had. Realized that the Mieko Kamiya has already called it out
Yeah.
more than 50 years ago.